So hi everybody and welcome to episode 60 of Level Up, and 60 episodes and for 60 minutes of live Q&A where your questions and votes of course really do drive the show. So please everybody, if you're joining on LinkedIn or on YouTube, do use the Slido links that we post in the chat to vote up the questions that you would most like answered, and of course to add your own as well. That would be really, really great. Okay. We live stream on Mondays at 8 UK time and Fridays at this time, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, to both YouTube and LinkedIn. And you can find out a lot more about what we do as a business by visiting apmginternational.com. Today, we're talking all about how to become a project manager, from the simple life hacks that can get you from one role to another to those life-changing steps in our careers that create those giant leaps. Now then, joining me today is a diverse panel, and they've all come to the world of project management by very different routes. So let's jump straight in and meet them all. Farah Heba specializes in project management. She teaches internationally. She combines her knowledge and experience of both waterfall and agile methods to deliver outstanding education and training for clients. So welcome back, Farah. Great to see you.
Thank you, Nick. I'm delighted to be here with you today. Thanks again for inviting me.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. Jaap Barlow draws upon his creativity and discipline. Right in his background, I think, has a classical music background to be able to draw upon and apply to his current role at Training ByteSize, an organisation who themselves are steeped in project, programme and portfolio management. Welcome back, Jaap. Great to see you.
Good afternoon, Nick, and hello everyone. It's fantastic to be back on Level Up, and I'm joining you today from the wonderful heart of Cheshire, and it happens to be a gorgeous day. So I'm in a very good mood and can't wait to get started.
Okay, excellent. Well, that's really good news. So thank you very much indeed. Ian Clarkson is also in the UK. He's a practice director, of course, over at QA Limited. He's been, I think it's fair to say, that his career has been immersed in the world of project management. And he's a peer-reviewed expert, speaker, coach, mentor, and an author in his own right. So welcome back, Ian. Great to see you.
Hi, thanks, Nick. Hello, everybody. Delighted to be here. Thank you for the invitation back, and really looking forward to the next 60 minutes.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Jaap van der Deijl is the managing director of the TPG Academy over in the Netherlands, project manager who has worked extensively in Europe and also in Africa. Jaap is also the author of the Working in Small Projects Guidance, or WISP as it's affectionately known. Welcome back, Jaap. Great to see you.
Hi, Nick. Thank you for the invitation and great to be here. Looking forward to the 60 minutes and hopefully have enough time to answer all the questions.
Well, we'll do our best. We'll try and get through them as quickly as we can. I'm already seeing lots of folks online who I'm going to come to in a moment. Nick Dobson is next. He's a principal consultant at CITI Limited, where his career in consulting, coaching, and educating senior project program and portfolio managers delivers value and insight for his clients. So welcome back, Nick. Great to see you.
Thanks very much indeed, Nick. It's good to be back and have another opportunity to join the Level Up panel. I can't really add a lot to what my colleagues have already said. I'm really looking forward to the next 60 minutes and the weather's fine.
Okay, well, now that we've covered all the meteorological aspects of joining, we've got some folks joining from all around the world, actually. We've got Olu, who is joining us. He is a student at the Robert Gordon University, and he's the Vice President International at RGU. So really welcome, Olu. So great to see you online. Also, Tony Kawesha. He's a portfolio analyst. He's joining us from Birmingham, which I assume is Birmingham in the UK, although there are many Birminghams around the world as well. So we'll wait and see. So welcome to you both who have already introduced yourselves on LinkedIn. Another key person for today is our question master. So I'd like to say hello to her. Hi, Charlotte. How are you doing today?
Good, thank you very much. I'm coming to you live from a very cold Thames Valley.
All right, okay, so it might be warm and sunny in the north of the UK, but it's a little chilly down here in the south. All right, very good. So on that note, then, let's move on if we can, and no pressure panel, but let's take our first question, please, Charlotte.
Thanks, Nick. We've got a question from Thomas in London. Do I need to master planning, budget, scope, procurement, etc., to be a good project manager, or can I rely on matter experts to help?
Okay, all right, Jake, why don't you start us off with this, and then we'll hear from Farah.
I'm going to start briefly with the old adage: a jack of all trades and a master of none. But that's not the whole saying. It's often far better than a master of one. So the idea is that to be a good project manager, you don't have to know all of the technical aspects in depth. It's very good often to be a generalist, a facilitator, to be able to kind of lead and motivate, and do rely on that subject matter expert knowledge for help. You don't have to be good at everything. In marketing, we like to talk about what's called the T-shaped marketer. So you have a general knowledge of lots of things, but you're really good at one thing often, and there's your T. So I believe that's something that translates very well into project management as well.
Excellent. All right. Thank you very much indeed. You're absolutely right. Farah, and then Ian, please.
I would say that it depends what you mean. First, by mastering each one of these knowledge areas. Of course, the project manager should be at ease with scope management, schedule management, or cost management, or whatsoever. But it's still a teamwork. Of course, they can rely on subject matter experts, but it's preferable to know what's at stake, to understand and to understand how to challenge partners, how to challenge team members when necessary, and to be able to make the right decision on the right time. So general knowledge would be okay, but for some projects, you might need to have much more knowledge or much more expertise to make sure that you challenge the right people and you have the right impact and make the right decision.
Absolutely. Thank you. It's a really, really good point. Thank you, Farah. Ian, your thoughts, please.
Yeah, I was thinking about it, and I think it depends on the size of your organisation as well. You could be working on projects in quite a small organisation where you have to have kind of involvement in a lot of these different things for no other reason than there's nobody else to do it, and therefore you need to have a bit more of kind of involvement. If you're working for a slightly larger organisation, there might be experts in place which you can draw on. Use of specialist tools. It could be financial systems. It could be procurement systems that you have to use. So I agree with kind of the other panelists in the sense of you can't be all things to everyone. Having a kind of a broad knowledge of some of the general principles is useful, but I certainly know in my own experience, I'm not an expert on planning, budgeting, scope, or procurement. So kind of I have to rely on colleagues to help me out with that. So yeah, don't worry if you feel that you have to be. You can't be. So I think it's there's plenty of people out there to be able to support you.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Nick?
Yeah, I've absolutely mirror the sentiments of all my fellow panelists. What draws my attention with the question is the selection of topics or disciplines that we're wondering whether we should become masters of. And if we look at that, some of that is fairly esoteric or narrow technical disciplines, like procurement, for example. I mean, not all projects necessarily depend on procurement, but many do. And budgeting might be budgeting, or it might be financial control. So some of these are quite esoteric. Two of them in particular, the planning and the scope components, however, are common to all projects. And whether or not you're a detailed master of flying Primavera or Microsoft project, the actual function of planning, determining where you're taking the piece of work and how you're going to control it as you take it there, is a fairly fundamental skill, and it's well worth getting a broader knowledge of that discipline, not necessarily becoming a master, but certainly having a broad knowledge of it. I'd say the same is true of scope. Projects can only create the correct outcomes for the clients if the scope is correctly identified. And again, you don't have to be good at configuration management and version control and those things to fundamentally validate that the scope your project is generating is suitable for the client and the sponsor. So I think it is a question of don't try and master all disciplines, but be clear which disciplines are important to you as you go into the job.
That's great advice. Thank you very much indeed, Nick. Jaap, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think most have been said. The only thing I'd like to add is that I think you are lucky as a project manager if you have matter experts around you who can help you. when I started and in many other projects, you see that as project manager, a lot has to be done by yourself. You have to invent it. So I think, it's nice to have matter experts, but you must understand at least the basics, the topics addressed over here.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Jaap, and also with the wider panel in the sense that, if you're going to be the PM, then you need to understand, have an empathy for all of the different roles and responsibilities that are across the project. You don't necessarily need to be an expert. What you need to be able to do is draw out that expertise in others and make sure that their voices are heard at the right time, so that you genuinely get a team outcome, and rather than an outcome just based on the noisiest, people, if you like, the shoutiest ones, and so on. That's the skill, if you like, the art that is in it, rather than just purely the mechanicals or the science, behind it, to make sure that every voice is heard and in appropriate measure. Very good. That's an excellent start. Thank you very much indeed. It's a great question, Thomas. So thank you for submitting it. And thank you to all of the people who are watching online. We've got a couple of folks commenting. We've got some questions coming, I think, panel as well from our live audience. So we'll get to those fairly soon. In the meantime, Charlotte, let's take our next question, please.
Thank you, Nick. We've got another question from Thomas in London. What are the main soft skills needed as a project manager?
All right, so the softer side of things, we hinted on this just a moment ago. Farah, start us off on soft skills, please, and then we'll hear from you.
Well, I will focus on, I would say, 3 main soft skills that I found really key in my career so far. First one that you have already mentioned a bit earlier, Nick, what's related to active listening and empathy. That would help you gain, let's say, insight and truly understand the needs of all your stakeholders, whether they are part of your team or outside of your product team. The second one would be, for me, the relationship management, relationship building, I would say. Like being able to create a link with your stakeholder, establishing a collaborative culture in your team, a kind of, I would call it a psychological safety, where people happily work together. And the third one would be, for me, critical thinking and quick decision making, because being a project manager is also being someone that makes a lot of decisions every day, multiple times a day. So being able to make informed and fact-based decision for the good of the project would be one, let's say, of the skills that will be needed by project managers.
You're so right. And I absolutely want to champion that active listening piece right at the beginning. So often, isn't it? So often, Farah, we're in the situation of trying to form what we are going to say next whilst the other person is still speaking, and we're not really listening 100%. So fantastic advice. Thank you so much. That's really, really super helpful. Jaap, next, please, and then Ian.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, what I would like to add, Farah, is that leadership, of course, is important. And I think one of the most important things is building commitment from the whole team and from the stakeholders. I think if you have a committed team, you can do everything. Without a not committed team, when you have a team with people who are not committed to the outcome of what you want to achieve, it will make life harder for you as a project manager.
Yeah, most definitely. Thank you very much indeed, yeah. And Ian?
It's the second one that was kind of mentioned by Farah, relationship building. And I learned a hard lesson early on in my career as a young project manager. I was asked to go run a project with a more senior colleague, shall we say. And I went over to him and I went, "Hello, I'm Ian, I'm your project manager." And he just looked at me and went, "My son's older than you," and kind of moved on. And kind of I was there going, okay. Do you not want to see my risk register then? Do you not want to see my PID? And it was kind of like all that went out the window, and it was completely down to building that relationship. And, and what I say to people is, I can teach you risk. You can be given technical knowledge. What I can't do for you is build those relationships. And if you've got those relationships on board, life will be a lot easier. So yes, relationship building
I think you're absolutely right. I remember, myself, some of the early projects that I was on, the client would often say, okay, so at the end of the first day, justify why we need a project manager. I was kind of thinking, well, if you don't know that, then I'm not entirely sure quite about it. But you had to kind of win people over, didn't you? That's what you've got to do. You've got to invest in that. It doesn't come with the badge. It is earned and not given. Jake, your thoughts, please.
Just a kind of a brief add to what's already been said, and it's along the lines of it feeds into building relationships and having that kind of ability to motivate, and that's focusing on one's own presentation skills. The idea that am I able to communicate my ideas clearly and in a way that is passionate and engaging and that is going to motivate, especially if a project's at a low ebb. Or even if you yourself are not feeling particularly sunny, unlike myself today, I'm in a frightfully good mood. But being able to engage and really make that connection and having the emotional intelligence to do so is something that's very easy to overlook. But it's something that it's almost my kind of first go-to for me, because I think being able to form that connection is the first kind of vital step in kind of building relationships and motivating others and kind of bringing together all those kind of project management skills.
I completely agree with that, and so did the audience, actually, Jake. Natalie's just commented in the chat, that relationships are vital, they're key for everything that we do. Jethro's joining in now as well. Actually, he's just saying that it's really good. It's really good to listen to this. So thank you, panel. I think we're heading in the right direction. So really very good indeed. Charlotte, can we take our next question, please, if we may?
You can, Nick. We've got a question from Edith in Manchester. Do I become a project manager for a specific industry, or does a project manager role fit all industries?
Okay, we'll start with Ian and then Nick, please.
Oh, Edith, that's a question and a half, that, isn't it? You've opened a can of worms now, in the sense of that you can get quite polarising views on this. I know which kind of camp I sit in, and the answer for me, it's a case of no, you don't need to be a PM in specific industries, because when you look at kind of the skills that you need and some of the things that we spoke about in the soft skills in the previous question, they're universal, they're generic. I learned my trade in the automotive industry, and every time I went to try and get a job as a project manager, when I left that, they thought all I knew was about cars, and believe me, I know nothing about cars. So I was kind of pigeonholed because they thought I could be a project manager in a specific industry, and that's all I knew. When the reality is, stakeholder engagement, planning, risk, all of that stuff, which is all applicable across any project, stands you in good stead. So personally speaking, I think it's a generic discipline. You don't need to know everything there is about IT to be a project manager in an IT organisation. But that's just my view. That's just my view.
And I think you're really correct, therein. So very good, thank you. Let's hear from Nick and then from Farah, please.
Yeah, I mean, Ian's answer is absolutely right, and I'm with Nick and Ian on that. The role of project manager, certainly as you get to more senior levels, you become more remote from any technical discipline, because it's much more about stakeholder engagement and complexity than it is about a technical discipline. And actually at CITI, we did a very significant piece of research to answer just that question. Does a project manager have to be in this particular sector to flourish, or can they flourish in any sector? And the answer was definitely in favour of the last. The reason I was keen to get onto this question, though, is that the headline title for "How do I become a project manager?" Offers two real routes. One is you become a project manager because you join an industry or a sector or have a technical discipline, and you earn a project management role in that, in which case the first part of the question would seem to be where you're leaning. Or you determine that you want to be involved in project management from an early stage for some reason and follow a project management development pathway rather than an industry pathway, both being valid routes to becoming a project manager. So it's not that you aren't interchangeable. you can take the generic skills, as Ian suggested, and apply them across a range of sectors. But equally, adroitness in a particular sector can stand you in good stead as you climb up the ladder in that sector.
Very much. Farah, then Jaap.
Well, on my side, I've been a product manager in different industries. I started my career as an industrial engineer. I've been in pharmaceuticals, in retail, and then in automotive. And moving from an industry to another, I see that although specific responsibilities vary from an industry to an industry, the role of the project manager will always include, let's say, some generic items like communication and team management, making decisions, managing crises or risks. Of course, there are in some industries things that you might need to be proficient in. You might need to be proficient in certain topics or to be aware of certain regulations like data privacy or security or whatsoever. But there is still a basis that would fit all, I would say, and that would require you to understand the main topics related to project managers and project management as a global thing, rather than thinking of an industry and its specificities from that point of view.
Very much indeed. Yeah.
Yes, I agree with the previous panelist, and especially also with Farah. I said, okay, it is very helpful if you have knowledge about certain industries, about the standards, regulations, etc., etc. Also, the risks part is important in that respect. So, I think a lot of companies ask for a specific project manager with a certain CV to demonstrate that you have the knowledge and experience in that industry. But it is not necessary.
Yeah, and I think that you're right there. I think my view would be actually it's quite tricky, particularly if you're contracting. It's quite tricky to break the mold. All right, you get known if you've been working in, say, I don't know, financial services, and you're working in insurance or something like that. You tend to get known to be, associated with that industry. So if there is a trick to being a professional project manager and building your career, is actually to look for opportunities to leverage your experience in one industry into another. There are many transferable skills working in a regulated environment, working in an environment which is fast paced, one which where organizational agility becomes more important, and so on and so on. And these skills, I genuinely believe, transcend the vertical industry that you happen to be working in at the time. The however is, there are some times when projects are being driven by a need to meet a statutory or a regulatory requirement. And at that point, it is actually super useful, as we open the show, to build your knowledge and understanding of that regulatory environment, and help to build up your domain understanding. And, think about the industry that you're working in and draw from experts, so that you can, at least have that empathy for what is going on. Very good. Thank you very much indeed, panel. That's great. We're going to move on because we've got lots of live questions stacking up. We've got a fantastically active audience. So thank you so much, everybody. We are working on getting your questions in. You can, of course, go straight over to slido.com, event ID 565460, and enter yours directly as well. That would help us out with some of the typing. So we're catching up. Go ahead, Charlotte.
Nick, I think we need to extend the show because we've got that many live questions coming in. The next question is from Ron Lehman. How much change management experience do you feel a project manager needs to be successful at their job? Remember, every project is a change project.
Well, Ron, we know you're a great champion of change management around the world, and you do some fantastic work in that regard. So thank you for joining us at what I'm sure is quite a late hour, actually, for you, given where we know which part of the world that you live in. So thank you very much for that. And panel, what are your thoughts on this, especially for people who are setting out, at the beginning of their careers and to be a project manager? What are your thoughts on picking up those aspects of organizational change and understanding that along the way? Yeah, start us off on this one.
Yeah, okay, let me try. As a project manager, you are trying to implement some change in an organization or to introduce a new product. You have to take into account the stakeholders and the fact that not every stakeholder wants to support the idea of implementing a change. And every project needs to have a solid business case, and you have to demonstrate that there's a need for something. But not every stakeholder is accepting the need for a change. So yes, you must understand the fact that people will try to block an improvement or a change in an organization, and you have to know how to deal with it. But you can't do it yourself as project manager. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much indeed, Farah.
Well, I would say that being a project manager is managing communication and dealing with change like 100% of your time. So communicating with people means also that you understand what would be at stake for them, what would change, that you will try to figure out what would be the best thing to communicate the change to them, make sure that they do not resist, to make sure that they understand what are your objectives, what are the goals of your project. So being a good change manager, or having at least, let's say, some knowledge of change management, might help you into getting commitment and involvement from the people that are around the project, especially if you tend to find ambassadors or any champions that might help you into communicating the view and the objective behind your project. So it's a key component for the project manager, let's say, perspective and the project manager style. But at the same time, you will learn from projects. So it's not to have a pressure, or you do not need to be pressured by not knowing exactly what change management is or what would be the key components of it.
Hey, thank you very much indeed. Don't be overwhelmed, is what I'm hearing from that in your early career. Let it build up over time organically is the best way to go. Thank you very much indeed. Nick, your thoughts, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. I very much echo Farah's sentiment and the gist of Ron's question, because one of the things that perpetually trips up many training courses is that a lot of people tend to think of change management as some version of scope control within the project, whereas what I think Ron is leaning towards and what Farah's really pointing out is that projects are there to achieve changes, outcomes. And if the project can't achieve the necessary outcomes, if the scope hasn't been aligned with ensuring that the change required in the organization takes place, then you're up a gum tree. So yeah, every project is a change project. And so you must at least be au fait and familiar with the concept of change management. Does the project manager have an accountability for ensuring the change takes place beyond the project within the business, that the outcomes land appropriately? Is a really ticklish question, because of course you couldn't in conscience deliver the project's outputs if you weren't confident of the outcomes of the change taking place. But who should actually manage that change, and how the project manager engages them is an interesting question. So it's very much an empathy for and understanding of change management that I think is mandatory to the role.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. I've worked with folks who were brilliant at this, and I've worked with people who genuinely had a real personal development need in understanding how actually to bring people with them, through a change program. So I think we've all experienced, both ends of that spectrum. So thank you very much indeed, panel. I just want to feed back to you, panel, some of the comments that we've been getting in the chat. So welcome, Jethro. It's great for you to be engaged with us today. So thank you very much for your thoughts. Deijl is talking about trying to get balance all of the time between tasks and people orientation and so on. Is such an important aspect for any project manager. And Winifred, that we mentioned earlier, she's joining us actually from Sierra Leone. So great to have you with us today. So thanks, Winifred. And Aaron has got a couple of questions that are filtering their way through. So we'll be addressing those soon. So thank you to everybody who's saying hi. Hi, Kreshnik. Great to have you on the call. He's a senior legal officer. He's joining us this afternoon as well and tuning in to hear all about developing project managers as careers. So Charlotte, let's move on, please. We'll take our next question.
And we have one of those live questions now from Julie Rose. How do you see the project manager's relationship with human resources working?
Okay, well, that's a great question, isn't it? Thank you so much, Julie. So the project manager's relationship with HR overall is going to, I guess, change depending on the nature and the scope of the project. Some projects can be quite unique and technical in their nature. Others have more wide-reaching impact on individuals, teams, and organisations. Ian, what's your experience?
That's a great question from Julie. For me, there's a couple of dimensions here, I think, actually. The first one that I was thinking about was, in a project, we're operating in a kind of a matrix environment, aren't we? A matrix management environment. So we don't necessarily physically line manage or own the resources. So if we have a particular challenge, maybe with an individual, there's a relationship there with the HR to kind of, and the line man to deal with that. If we were taking HR in that almost kind of, kind of people performance sense. But then I started thinking about, well, actually, HRs are usually a really vital part of the stakeholder community within the project. And thinking back to the previous question on change management, I think we need a strong relationship with HR because we're asking people to change. And some people are going to feel very differently about that change. It could be changing working practice as a result. And, there could be statutory legal implications of all of that, as a general kind of rule that I have is, even if you're not sure, get them involved early on. It's kind of easier to involve them and get that advice early on than it is to go a little bit later and go, oh, right, we've got a problem now. I think I need HR. So I think it's a strong working relationship because, again, fundamentally, people, aren't you, if we're going to take it in that regard. So, yeah, good question. Good question, I think. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Thank you very much. Farah, your thoughts?
Yeah, I would add something. Sometimes in your project management, let's say scope or your responsibilities, you might need to make some assessment, competencies or skills assessment, and to make sure that you have the right people around the table. And in such kind of topics, I think that the relationship that you can build with your HR and their, let's say, subject expertise might help you to use the right tools, make sure that you, let's say, pick the right people into your team and that it fits with what are the requirements behind your project. So I see the relationship like a, let's say, win-win situation in which the project manager gets something from the HR and the same the other way around. The HR may have the feedback from the project manager when hiring someone new, make sure also that it fits the team, it fits the project or the, let's say, the strategic goals that the company would have and on which those people and those resources will be dedicated.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. I think you're so right. And from the project manager's point of view, to Ian's point, when he first started thinking about this, you rarely own the resources, all right? You're really just borrowing the authority. You're borrowing the authority of the project sponsors. You're borrowing the authority of the community in which we're serving. You're borrowing the authority of the experts in the project team and so on and so on. You're borrowing people all of the time. So one of the things I think that HR can really, really help with is to find the great people. Who are the great people? Because the great people are usually super busy. All right? There's a very old-fashioned saying on a project that if you want anything done, find a really busy person and ask them. Okay, now that might go across all of the kind of theory of resource management and all the rest of it, but it can actually get you out of a sticky situation, just because very busy people tend to be also pretty efficient, and they will find someone in their network, their informal network, to be able to help you out. So great idea. And what a brilliant question. And lots and lots of people actually in the chat saying, what a great question that is. So thank you so much, Julie, for submitting it. Great support there from Linda in the chat as well. So thank you very much indeed. Charlotte, let's move on, please.
Thanks, Nick. Sorry, we have another question, live question from Natalie Pierce. I have a background in project management and I have completed Prince2 and Agile and other skills needed. I'm struggling to get a break into project management. What suggestions would you have?
It's so hard, isn't it, when you're known for one thing to actually make that big leap? Ian, what are your thoughts?
I kind of think it links back to kind of some of the previous questions as well, almost like being pigeonholed in that particular industry as well as a particular challenge. I work quite a bit with the armed forces and service leavers, and project management's a fantastic kind of profession to go into. And what I say kind of the service leavers, and I guess this is the message to get across, is think about those wider skills. If you're going for an interview or something like that, and you were to be a project manager, don't just think about, can I do risk, can I do planning, can I do quality? What about all the collaborative behaviours? What about the leadership aspects? What about, kind of overcoming adversity, overcoming resilience, all of that side of things? And when you start looking at project management as a whole and all of those kind of skills, you'll surprise yourself, Natalie, I think, in the sense of you probably have an awful lot of the skills that you need to be a good project manager already. And it's that focus on those that I would strongly advocate then to try and get you that break in terms of if it's through job applications or something like that. So just think about those wide skills. Think about the broad skills that you need and really kind of play on those. The technical stuff can come.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Jake, and then Nick.
This is something that sort of resonates with me simply because during the pandemic, before the pandemic, I was very much known thing as Nick mentioned. I used to be a classical musician, and I made that leap into marketing and then into project management. I think something that's very important to remember, having made a analogous leap to yours, is you can't give up on it. It can be very, when you're struggling and when you're not achieving those goals that you've set for yourself that you want, it can be very hard not to kind of want to kind of give up on that. So that's one thing that you will find you will benefit as you struggle, is that you're going to build that resilience and be able to kind of be adaptable and cope with the kind of changes that you've got coming up. So I would definitely say, yes, don't forget to keep doing what you're doing as well, because sometimes it can take some time for that change to really take effect.
Nick?
Yeah, Natalie, I've got a huge amount of sympathy for this. I mean, as Nick said at the head of the show, we all find our own routes into project management. And for a lot of people, and certainly in my case, that was an accidental journey. I fell into project management. You've clearly got an ambition. You've done the training. You've got technical qualifications. But what I note is that you've also got a background in project management. And that means you've got experience. And experience is one of the most valuable correlates with successful delivery. So when you're seeking a PM role and trying to break into project management, by all means, show your certificates and your technical knowledge to the people with whom you're trying to break in, but actually trade on your experience. Point out that you've got a background in project management. You've not just got the badges, but you've done the job or have experience in the job, and that experience is likely to stand you in very good stead, not just in terms of breaking into the career, but in making good decisions thereafter.
Yeah, absolutely. Jaap, and then Farah.
Yes, I agree with Nick. When having a background, you will become more competent in project management. I once walked in a corridor, walking to the laboratory, and before I ended up in the laboratory, I was a project manager. Not because I did have an P2 qualification or Agile, it was in 1982, but because someone said, "Okay, I think this guy is ready to run his first project." If you are struggling, please continue in learning, get more experience in project management, and develop project management skills. I myself, once I was a project manager, I learned what it was if a project team was not reporting progress or not communicating. So I learned a lot of not being a project manager on the moment that I was a project manager myself. So don't give up. Time will come when you're ready. And the other thing I like to add is, if you feel comfortable in the job you are doing, you have to question yourself: should I become a project manager? Are you sure that you will be more comfortable, more enjoy your work more if you're a project manager and in the job you are doing now? project manager is not always a
Thank you.
glorious job.
Don't said with some experience there. I think there's a little bit of feeling there. There's kind of like, oh yeah, I remember that. It's quite hard. It's quite hard. Okay, it is hard, but it's also very, very rewarding. So thank you very much, Jaap. Farah, let's hear from you, please.
Well, I would say that if you want to get in a room by a door and the door doesn't open, well, you can try through another door. What I mean by this metaphor is that if you cannot, let's say, break into a PM job or PM position right away, you can try and join, for example, a PMO office or a project management office, doing maybe a project coordinator role or a PMO role, and then you will evolve, let's say, quickly, because if I understood correctly, you already have a background as a project manager, you already have some certifications, so you will see, people will see right away that you might be of, let's say, interest in a better position or a higher position. So if you cannot break into a PM position right away, do not forget that there are other project-related positions that exist and that can be, let's say, of let's say, basic for you and a starting point for you.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And talking about trying to open some other doors, ask. Okay, ask internally. Volunteer. Start to do things, get that experience that you need, and you can do it in a number of ways. I think within your organization you can volunteer, and ask as part of your appraisal mechanism, to be given more responsibility so that you can join in and do lead some engagement work initially, or a small part of a project, and then a project itself. And also outside of your work, you can volunteer as well, like every panelist is doing here today. Everybody on the show is a volunteer, okay? And you can put yourself forward. You can volunteer to be on our panel in the future and tell your story from the heart about, how your career has progressed so far, and network with the panelists. So, please feel free to do that. Outside of your day job, there's lots of charities and organizations that really could do with brilliant project management skills, and then you can add all of that experience to your CV. Okay, it's something that can really augment those skills and provide evidence that you've been able to apply the knowledge that you collected during that project management training, in whatever methodology it happened to be. So very good luck with that, Natalie, and do let us know if we can help you on your journey. All right, very good. Charlotte, please, let's move on if we can. I know we've got a lot to get through, so we're going to move at some pace now, panel, please, if we can.
So, Nick, we've got a question from Jethro. There's a lot of PMO qualifications. Which ones do you like the most?
Let's hear from Jake first. So this is kind of like the panel's top two. All right. Okay, then we're going to go through. So Jake first, and then I'm going to hear from Jaap next. I think I might know what Jaap's is, but anyway, Jake, go ahead.
So there's a really great suite of qualifications upcoming from House of PMO, which is kind of fully accredited by APMG, and it kind of takes you from essentials through to analyst and then onwards to director, I believe. But especially if you're looking at a starting point, there is the fantastic essentials for PMO administrators, for example. That's a really good qualification, I think.
Excellent idea. What a great place to begin. Thank you very much indeed, Jake. Yeah, what's your favorite? What's your favorite?
No, I don't have a real favorite one. I think everything depends on the size and the characteristics of a project. For most, if you start as a project manager, you probably start small. So I do see a lot of junior project manager and even secretaries going for a practitioner exam for a high standard where you need 7 years experience. I don't think that is the best way to start. I think, and that's the wrong question, wrong answer, but it all depends on what kind of projects you want to do and what kind of projects you are running. Keep it simple. Don't start for a 3 years course and diploma if you do run small projects. Yeah. And of course, I can tell a lot about this, but say that's not for now. keep it simple, I think.
Right.
And I think
Okay,
what APMG offers is the practice framework to look at. It can help.
all right. Yeah, I was going to come on to practice, because if you're thinking about project management as a career and you want a resource to be able to dip in and out of, you can do a lot worse than look at practiceframework.org. Okay. I think we'll get a colleague just to type that URL into the chat for people so that they can have a look. But I don't want to lose the panel's feelings about what's their favorite. So we're going to stick with this for a little while. Nick, can I come to you next? Out of the ones that you've kind of learned, do you have a kind of favorite, or are you now at the stage in your career where you're blending them together?
I mean, a recurrent theme for me is this idea of experience. Qualifications certainly have their place. Knowledge is vital, and you do need to understand specific tools and techniques in certain ways to apply them. So all qualifications have a value, and they formalize approaches, and depending on what challenge you face, different approaches are better, and you can make those judgments only if you know about the tools and techniques, which is what you learn in gaining the qualifications. Without sounding any note of negativity about qualifications, what the research that CITI have done on this topic is that actually no qualification is inherently better than any other qualification, as long as they're looking at the same disciplines. The use of a consistent approach and method, what a qualification will teach you to do, will yield a good result. So I'm actually, sorry to report, quite agnostic. I can't choose a favorite. I think it's a good idea to practice particular tools and techniques, but I wouldn't declare it must be this one. Because if you say we must do all product development using Agile, so go and get an Agile qualification, you obviate the possibility that a different piece of work won't respond well to Agile approaches, and you're stuck with only one tool in your toolbox. So I'm not going to declare a favorite. They're all valuable. You need to work out which ones will work for you.
That's all right. That's really good advice. Thank you very much. Ian, briefly, your final thoughts on this before we move on.
It's like trying to choose your favourite football player or your favourite kind of pop star or something like that. Is trying not to show my age. But just thinking back to kind of what Jaap was saying, I do like the House of PMO and the Essentials of a PMO Administrator and the Essentials of a PMO Administrator. The reason I like that is because it's role-based. And there's lots of different roles within the PMO, and actually people will be kind of joining a PMO at a particular level, and actually there's some really good guidance there around what the best practice says and what the good practice says for those particular roles. So I'd go for that at the moment. Yes, I'm pinning my colours to the flag in that regard.
All right, very good. Thank you very much indeed, panel. What a great question. Favorite. You see, it's carefully phrased as well, isn't it? And there's a lot of thought that's gone into that question so that it provided all of that value to everybody. So thank you very much indeed. And thank you to Jethro for being able to put that question to the panel. Now, we're rapidly running out of time, everybody. It's Friday afternoon here in the UK. Wherever you are in the world, it might be your evening, it might be your morning. But we're heading towards the weekend at any rate. So Charlotte, I think we can fit in one more question at least. So let's try and see what we can do with our next question, please.
Thanks, Nick. We've got a question from a live viewer. What is the difference between a project manager and a delivery manager?
Okay, all right. What a great question. What is the difference, panel, between a project manager and a delivery manager? Now, there may, of course, be a certain degree of, just using words in different ways here. It depends on what they mean. But Nick, have a stab at this, please.
I'm going to lean back into the old versions of managing successful programs, and it would distinguish the project manager as essentially accountable for delivering the scope of the project, creating the necessary outputs, whilst the role of the delivery manager is to sequence the arrival of those different outputs from a variety of projects within a program such that they achieve the correct sequence of outcomes to achieve the program's objectives on behalf of the business. So the delivery manager role sits outside of a project construct, more in a program type of construct, and is there really to facilitate the earlier discussion about change management. Farah's point that change management is a vital part of what projects are there to achieve is absolutely true. But where you have a project manager fixated on the delivery of the output, who's focusing on the outcomes, and that's the function of the delivery manager. Now, you've got a choice to make in your own mind about, do you start to accept some of the responsibilities and duties of a delivery manager, making sure that the output arrives in the correct sequence for the users to generate the outcomes with them? Or do you simply draw a barrier at the end of your project, say, I'm a project manager and that's up to the business to sort out? I'm very much in the former camp. I think a good project manager is adept at delivery management, but it's not the main focus of their role. I don't know if that's particularly helpful to you, live viewer, but that's my stance.
I think it's kind of it's a classic and a textbook, and I have to say, very comprehensive answer, Nick. So I'm really hoping that it is. It's no, not at all. Please do not apologise at all. It seems fantastic. I think there's a little bit of wiggle room that Ian might like to add to, but no, fantastic coverage of that question. Thank you.
I wonder whether it's a bit of semantics in terms of the term as well, and if it is, I feel the term delivery manager is doing a little bit of a disservice to kind of the role, because as you were saying, Nick, it's just one particular aspect of it. When actually, to be good project managers is the whole kind of through the business case up to delivery and the benefits realisation, whereas delivery maybe has that just kind of one part of it. So I mean, it could be terminology within organisations. And I'm very much in that kind of project manager kind of camp, because I think it tells the story of what we're trying to do rather than just one small aspect of it. So what's the difference between the two? On one hand, it could be semantics. It could be semantics. I'll be interested from whoever posed the question whether or not it's kind of is it just terminology within their organisation, or kind of is it something else? But yes, good question.
All right, very good. Thank you very much, Adin. Thank you for putting it to the panel now. As ever with these things, great things, fun things always come to an end. So I think what we're going to do now, if we may, is thank our producers who've been online. It's just a great job, everybody, for putting all of those questions in live to the panel. Fantastic. Thank you so much. We've had huge amount of engagement in the chat throughout, so that's really, really great. Thank you very much indeed. I am actually hearing just in my ear that we want to try and fit in one more question, if we can kind of squeeze something in. Charlotte, is that the case? Do we have one more that we can fit in? We're super quick.
It's not in the question bank. It's coming through LinkedIn from Winifred. What technical skills that are essential for aspiring project manager?
All right. So what are the technical skills, the essential technical skills? Thank you. Yeah, I've got that now. For an aspiring project manager. So what are the essential technical skills for an aspiring project manager? Panel. Jake, go ahead.
Okay, so because I can only be very brief on this, partly it's know your industry. Different industries might have specific technical skills you might need to know. In terms of kind of a more general technical skills, I would say, know project life cycles, know how they interact, know the technical aspects of being able to engage your stakeholders, and be able to kind of do those kinds of things. I mean, I know that's a very, very general answer, but I had to be very, very quick under instruction.
Thanks. We're just up against the clock. That's all. Ian, briefly.
Planning. Somebody once said to me many years ago, projects fail at the beginning, they don't fail at the end. So planning. That's the shortest answer I've given all.
Really good advice. Yeah. I always thought I was quite good at planning, actually, until I actually met a planner. And then I realised like, you move from this kind of confident sort of unconscious incompetence phase. You kind of think, la, 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 things are going fine. And then you meet somebody who's really good at it and you think, oh, okay, no, I didn't think of that. Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, okay. All makes sense now. All right, very good. So brilliant question. Thank you very much indeed, Winifred, for just sneaking it in there. Okay, and we'll look forward to another episode of Level Up very soon, where we're talking about projects and change. Actually, there's a change management episode coming up soon, Winifred, that you might like to join. We'll talk a bit more about that in a few moments. So, panel, let's hear now your closing remarks for today, if we can. So, Jaap, if I may, I'm going to come to you first, and then Farah.
Yes, what I take away from now is that the questions about how to become a project manager, there are a lot of people interested and wanted to know more about it. I know from the market that there's a big need for project managers in the near future. As I predicted almost at the start of this event, is we started with 16 questions and we ended with 26 unanswered questions. So yes, we don't have enough time in the 60 minutes. And I joined the Level Up session, great panel, and it's fun to join. So thanks.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for your patience as well while we navigated our way through and tried to get as much in as possible. Farah, your thoughts, please, and then Nick.
Well, first of all, thanks all for this great session. There was amazing questions, I think. I'll conclude by saying that the most important thing, according to me, to keep in mind in regards to becoming a brand new project manager is that first, every step counts when you learn. You need to figure out your project management style also, and to be curious of new practices, of new techniques. You also need to learn by doing, and to not fear to fail sometimes. It's not easy as a career, but it's not impossible, and there are a lot of benefits behind being a project manager.
Great insight there. Don't be afraid to have a go. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Get in there and do something, make a difference. Brilliant advice. Thank you, Farah. Nick, and then Ian.
Yeah, again, thank you everybody for the questions. It has been very engaging, and I'm going to really echo Farah's sentiment. I mean, a lot of this afternoon's discussion has been about qualifications and approaches and techniques and tools, but for the vast majority of accidental project managers, what really matters is that you do the job. You learn through experience, as Farah says. That's how you build your competence, your capability. Yes, you learn, by all means, follow the methodologies, the processes, find your favorite tools and techniques, but it's really about experience, and you can only get that by rolling your sleeves up and getting stuck into the job.
Absolutely right. Thank you so much, Nick. And that's the kind of, the voice of experience talking as well, and doing this for a living every day is fantastic. So thank you very much indeed, Nick. Ian, and then Jake.
I would say build your network, kind of build your network through LinkedIn or otherwise, and don't be afraid to use that network. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Kind of contact people for advice, for jobs, for, some support or whatever it would be. Build that network. It's a really great time to be in the subject and the profession. A lot of help and support out there. So don't be afraid to ask. So thank you to everybody for all the questions and the great questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Ian. And if you'd like to connect with any of the panel, you can find them on the APMG International website. Just go to apmginternational.com and go to events, and then today's event will be then. You'll be able to read a little bit about everybody's background and click through to their LinkedIn profiles, and I'm sure that they would welcome connecting with you as well. Jake, your thoughts, and then we'll hear from Charlotte.
Well, thank you very much again, Nick, and the APMG team for having me along. As something of an accidental project manager, I would take away kind of two things. And the first is your soft skills, a practiced and polished ability to kind of communicate, engage, and motivate will set you in good stead, and it will set you apart. And the second is this: project management is people. So whether that is you're managing people in projects, or like Ian said, managing your networks and leaning on your networks and getting that knowledge and help, project management is people. So be good at being a person, and be good at getting your people skills into touch, because that's where you're really going to stand out from the crowd.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Now we've got a little gremlin that's kind of crept in. So unfortunately, we've got an interruption to the connection with Charlotte, our question master. But she's been able to communicate kind of via text. She just wants to say thank you so much to everybody who's been joining in online and putting all of those questions in. We're a little bit overwhelmed today, I think, with the just the sheer quantity that have come in and the engagement. So thank you very much from all around the world on her behalf. Okay, so we'll pass that on. Thank you very much indeed, panel. Now then, if you've been enjoying Level Up and you've been getting value from it, then please don't be shy. Head over to our YouTube channel if you would, and just click like on the videos, okay, and subscribe to our channel, and then you'll get a little notification if you click the bell as to when we're posting new content and setting up our live shows and so on. Now, on our website, you can search for and view answers to over 900 questions, many of which are actually to do with project and project management and careers and so on. Just go to search for Level Up on our website. It's an amazing free resource. There's more than 100 experts now from all over the world. And don't forget as well that you can listen to the audio versions of the shows on your preferred podcast platform. Today's will be an epic one to enjoy over the weekend. All right, now then, Monday the 2nd coming up, we're going to take a little break as it's a public holiday here in the UK. Apologies to those countries that don't have that on Monday, who are going to be working hard and keeping the economy going. So we're going to be back this time next week, Friday the 6th, and we're going to be focusing on how to become a change manager. Now, some of the questions that we had today were all about change management. So we're going to port some of those over. But if you'd like to add your question, go to slido.com and look for the event ID 565461 as it's episode 61. Okay. Subscribe to the show and we'll send you a personal summary of what's coming up and how you can join us here on the panel. And of course, level up your career with APMG. Thanks very much indeed, everybody. We'll see you next time.